Driving back from the Mystigo to the Mississippi River, we stumbled into a Canary Islander cemetery. Now, I've heard of the Canary Islanders before, but didn't know much about them. And while I fly the cemetery, I'm going to share the research that I found. Isleños are a Spanish ethnic group living in the state of Louisiana, consisting of people primarily from the Canary Islands. They are descendants of colonists who settled in Spanish Louisiana between 1778 and 1783, before the Louisiana Purchase. In Louisiana, the Isleños originally settled in 4 communities, which included Galveztown, Valenzuela, Barataria, and San Bernardo. Of these settlements, Valenzuela and San Bernardo were the most successful, as the other 2 were plagued with both disease and flooding. The large migration of Acadian refugees to Bayou Lafourche led to the rapid gallicization of the Valenzuela community, while San Bernardo was able to preserve much of its unique culture and language into the 21st century. However, the transmission of Spanish and other customs completely halted in St. Bernard Parish, with those having competency in Spanish being octogenarians. I assume that's from the Katrina thing, but we'll read on. In recent years, heritage groups have been formed for the Isleños and their descendants to help preserve their ways of life. Judge Leander Perez was an Isleños. The success of the Isleños in Louisiana in preserving their culture has led some historians and anthropologists to consider the Isleño community as a part of the national heritage of the United States and the Canary Islands. In general, individuals belonging to the community are referred to with the Spanish Isleños, meaning islanders, an archaic name for persons coming from the Canary Islands. In St. Bernard Parish, the Canary Islanders were referred to as Isleños, both by themselves and others, even up to modern day. Prior to the American Civil War, the Canary Islanders and their descendants in Ascension and Assumption parishes sold their properties and moved into the interior marsh. The local Francophone population began referring to them as brûlé dwellers due to their practice of clearing the land with fire. This term originates from the French brûler, to burn. The exact number of Canary Islands that were settled in the territory is unknown, but is estimated to be about 2,000 individuals. Since settling in Louisiana, the communities have developed independently, with 2 of the original communities falling into ruin not long after their establishment. Following significant flooding of the Mississippi River in 1782, the Barataria settlement was abandoned, and the survivors were located to San Bernardo and Valenzuela, with some settling in West Florida. Galveztown suffered similarly with repeated floods of the Amite River in deplorable conditions. It was not long after the beginning of the 19th centuries that settlement was abandoned. San Bernardo. The settlement along Bayou Terre Boeufs was rather isolated, with the Isleño population being larger than any other community. The original Canary Islander recruits came mainly from the islands of Tenerife and Gran Canary. St. Bernard Parish historian William de Marguet Highland has located the origin of many of the descendants to the single location of Icod de los Vinos in the island of Tenerife. Early in the establishment of this community, a minority of Acadians were present, as well as Filipino from St. Malo, which intermarried with the Canarian colonists. In the 19th and 20th centuries, the community was reinforced by immigration from Spanish regions such as Andalusia and others. In 2005, Hurricane Katrina displaced many Isleños from their original communities. Those who returned to St. Bernard Parish have retreated behind the St. Bernard flood wall, and now live in the unincorporated towns of Toca, St. Bernard, Poydras, and into New Orleans. Valenzuela. Originally, the Canary Islanders were settled among land grants from frontage to Bayou Lafourche, near to what is today Donaldsonville. A census performed in 1784 found that 174 individuals belonging to 46 families were living along Bayou Lafourche, of which 154 were Isleños in 40 families. In the following 2 years, more than 800 Acadians were settled in the area, with the population reaching 1,500. Many of the Isleños families intermarried with the Acadians, gallicized their name, and assimilated into the larger Acadian community. Following the Louisiana Purchase, many Isleños sold their land grants and moved to the inland swamps and woods, which they burned to create farmland. In this isolation, the community preserved its language and other customs into the late 20th century, before it was eventually absorbed into the larger Cajun and ultimately American cultural identity. Isleños and their descendants can still be found in Donaldsonville area along Bayou Lafourche. The San Bernardo settlement, which was in St. Bernard Parish today, was referred to by many names in its inception. The first name was under the Spanish reign simply Tierra de los Bueyes, land of the oxen, as a direct translation from its French designation. This began a long string of names starting with La Concepcion, Nuevo Galvez, San Bernardo de Nuevo Galvez, and so on. By the end of the 1780s, simple name San Bernardo, or Saint Bernard, the patron saint of Bernardo de Galvez, was being used for the settlement and the documents describing the area. By 1790, sugarcane had replaced indigo as the most profitable crop in Louisiana. Wealthy planters purchased the Isleños land, many of whom were left with little choice but to work on the plantations consolidated from their small farms. While many worked on the sugarcane plantations in the 19th century, hunting, Spanish moths gathering, agriculture, cattle breeding, and carpentry were other occupations. It was during this period as well that the Isleño fishermen developed an important commerce in the fish and seafood they caught, selling their catch to New Orleans restaurants. What a history.